To ensure long-term success, destinations have to establish resilient frameworks supported by robust airlift and a diverse range of accommodation. We're going to see what the analysis on this is right now, and essential to the framework is a thorough comprehension of the potential risks and proactive measures needed to mitigate those risks. But this panel has the expertise to handle anything. So, and they'll tell you anything as well. So, let's meet who this panel are.
Our speakers now are Anca Apahidean, Area Manager Eastern Europe, IATA. Dr. Nikhil Kilpady, Consulting Director, Aerospace, Frost & Sullivan. Inge Huijbrechts, Global SVP, Sustainability, Security and Corporate Comms, Radisson Hotel Group. Nikolaos Gkolfinopoulos, Global Head of Travel, ICF. Tony Griffin, Senior Vice President, ASM World Route Consultants. Urshka Starts-Peceni, PhD, Partner, D3 Hub, EU Competence Center. And our moderator for this session, Ian Taylor, Executive Director, Travel Weekly Group. Glenn, let me please remind you that we will be taking questions using Slido, so please scan the QR code that will be displayed on the main screen to access the app and submit any questions that you might have. Thank you.
So welcome everybody. I just got a promotion from the Voice of God. I'm actually executive editor, but not a director, but thank you for that. The session is on strategies of resilience and profitability, but necessarily we're going to talk mainly about the building blocks for tourism development and what's required. So can I come first to you, Tony? Can you just say very briefly what ASM does and talk about the training you've been doing in Bosnia and Herzegovina in the last few days?
Okay, thanks Ian, a pleasure to be here. I was here a year ago at this conference. ASM stands for Airport Strategy and Marketing, and we're part of a big group of companies. I won't bore you with the detail, but essentially ASM was set up 30 years ago to help airports and destinations engage with airlines to deliver new air services. We're part of a group that includes an event you may have heard of called Routes. Routes is an event where airlines, airports, and tourism organizations meet to do B2B. Essentially, the airports and destinations are trying to persuade the airlines to fly to their airports. It's a heavily competitive environment. There are over 3,200 commercial airports in this world. There are only 800 commercial airlines. So you can see from the outset that competition is quite fierce. There's two things to start with. Tourism is back with a vengeance post-pandemic. The growth, the forecasted growth, and the experience now is that the demand for leisure-orientated activity, journeys, is enormous and continuing to grow. I'll throw one stat at you. I won't overwhelm you with data.
Sorry, Tony. Sorry to interrupt you, but we've sort of established that tourism's back and demand's, high in the previous sessions. Can we, because we're short of time, can we just cut to why you're in Bosnia and what the situation with air connectivity to Bosnia and Herzegovina is now?
So the reason we're here is we are here to train and share our experiences with the airports, the 4 airports of Bosnia and Herzegovina and the destination, to help them understand what are the drivers, how do you influence, how do you attract airlines to serve your market. So how do you create awareness, what are the tools, what are the means by which you engage with airlines to make yourself competitive, to stand out, and ultimately to deliver results. And what we've been sharing with the airports here are essentially data, how to create awareness, understanding the airlines that you're dealing with, understanding what the drivers are, and perhaps one of the most important things is how do you attract the airlines? How do you stay competitive? And one of the big issues that we shared with the airports is this whole issue of incentives to airlines to persuade them to fly to the airport.
Okay, and just very brief, broad strokes, what's the situation with air connectivity at the moment for Sarajevo and the other 3 airports in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
I think it's fair to say Bosnia Herzegovina in general is not very well connected. Yeah. I go home tonight, I've got to do 2 stops. Yeah. There are only 2 airlines offering direct services to Sarajevo, low frequency. The lifeblood, as we know, of tourism is connectivity. Having said that, there is huge opportunity here to develop more air services, and it's quite exciting times. Okay,
so but that's the baseline we're starting from then, relatively low connectivity. Anca, can I come from you for the IATA view? What needs to happen to put Bosnia more on the aviation map?
Thank you for the question, and thank you to the organizers for inviting IATA, the International Air Transportation Association, the Association of the Airlines, at this summit. It's my first time here. Actually, it's my first time in Bosnia and Herzegovina, although I'm responsible for the area, but indeed, due to connectivity reasons and of not having a national carrier here, I didn't come so far. What Tony was mentioning about the routes, it's indeed an event, a matchmaking event between the airlines and the airports. And I believe it's crucial for the airports, especially for these ones like in the region, that they need to come with the right package. I mean, you're like brides going to marriage. So you need to put your best clothes and have your best statistics and your best marketing. And this cannot be done alone. It needs to have a full cooperation with the tourism boards, because what you have here in Bosnia and in the countries around the region, it's tourism. And more, it's an untapped tourism. I mean, people, they don't know the beauty of Bosnia. They don't know the wildness and the surroundings. And the previous panel was great. I mean, seeing all these 6 representatives of tourists from the region and learn about their plans to cooperate. It was music to my ears.
Okay, so what can IATA do to help, if anything?
IATA usually does, regulatory side, sharing best practices and engaging the industry. What we can do to help this is helping the airlines, the ones that are here, to succeed. And why not to create different types of partnerships to serve much better the region? Because the region, as Tony was saying, is not well served.
So the connectivity of the region as a whole is poor, would you say now?
Yes. Although a report from Airport Council International shows that Bosnia and Herzegovina are within the 5 top countries with increased connectivity. So maybe they increase from very low to mid-low.
Okay. Nikhil, can I come to you? The Bosnia and Herzegovina not having a national carrier, is that as much of an obstacle as it would have been in the past, given that Ryanair and so on dominate European connectivity now? Anyway, what needs to happen to improve the connectivity?
Yeah, I think not having a national carrier is a bit of a concern because you would only then grow through foreign carriers in the region. And even for foreign carriers to grow, whether it's a low-cost carrier or a legacy one, they all look at risks. Safety being number one, but most importantly, it's the financial and the profitability risk. Now, yes, we can see awareness being built up, but it would be only directional flow of traffic. For an airline to be profitable, there must be directional balance. So with all the resources that Bosnia attracts tourists from outside, there must be traffic from Bosnia traveling outbound as well to balance the traffic. Unless it is extremely high-yielding inbound traffic, it is not possible for an airline to sustain in the long term, a very deep network into the particular country.
Is there an imbalance at the moment, and if so, why is that? The flight I came in to Sarajevo on from Vienna seemed full of local people returning home.
The imbalance at this point is not there because the overall frequency is very less.
Right.
But as you start adding flights, for example, if you want to move from 2 flights a week to double daily, you would need not just inbound tourism, but you would need outbound tourism. It could be corporate travel of Bosnians out of the country. It could be Bosnians traveling back to their country of work, for example. So we would need to see that growing as well. Alternatively, you could look at Bosnia as an intermediate country where something that feeds on to the Bosnia to the final destination flight from the rest of Europe.
Okay, so the local population isn't going to suddenly explode, is it? So is this an insurmountable obstacle, or could the airlines look at the model in the UAE, for example, where there isn't the balance you're talking about between the outbound traffic and the inbound traffic because of the transfer traffic? They get around it that way. Is there an alternative strategy?
Yes, I would think we would need feeder flights from the Balkans into Bosnia or rest of the Europe into the foreign country that we're traveling to. UAE has done that brilliantly. I just want to also share an example, some best practices from the rest of the world. We had Cathay Pacific flying from Hong Kong to Bahrain, but again, there was a directional imbalance. So Cathay managed to lobby the government for fifth freedom IATA rights to fly via Dubai. So a foreign carrier entered Bahrain, dropped passengers, picked up Bahraini passengers to UAE, and then the UAE-Hong Kong flight operated. So it was I think it helped both governments in terms of tourism as well as corporate traffic coming in.
Okay, so let's come back to some of these issues with air connectivity and capacity in a moment. Inge, can I come to you? Aviation is just one of the key elements that's needed. Obviously, accommodation when people get here is key. How do you assess the current availability and standard of accommodation in the country, and what is Radisson's presence?
Yeah, thank you. So, well, I'm here, and it's a pleasure to be here, so thanks for the invitation, because Radisson is not yet here. So that's an answer to whether we are here. We are, though, one of the largest global operators of hotels with 10 brands, 1,400 hotels in 95 countries, and we are strong in the region. So Western Balkan, for us, in the past years, I would say coming out of the pandemic, has grown tremendously. We have 28 hotels here. A number of those are still in development and will open soon. So with success stories in neighboring countries like Serbia, Bulgaria, etc. I think in terms of an international operator, for example, Radisson, what we bring is agility, so profitability, a network that can deliver best GOP, that delivers above market RGI. We bring sustainability. I'm the head of sustainability and security. So we bring sustainability. Do you know that 72% of travelers say they want to travel sustainably, but they don't know what is a sustainable accommodation? And we at Radisson, we offer an answer, not just for us, but for the industry with tools like Hotel Sustainability Basics. And then lastly, what is very important is we offer the connection to the community. Because for us, it's very important to also employ locally. We are the number 3 global employer in tourism and travel. We've been rated by Forbes as one of the best employers, and that's because we develop people. We employ local people because we manage and we franchise our hotels.
Okay.
So maybe if I just may say one more thing.
Yeah.
The one thing we need, though, is local investors, because we are asset light. Local or international investors with the guarantees through the financial institutions, multilateral banks, for example, to create that growth and to build those partnerships and bring everything that I just mentioned to the country. So I think we need to explore how we do that and then build more international supply.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, why are you not here? And I think you just answered that question. Why are there not local investors with the guarantees that you need at the moment? And when do you think Radisson will be in the country?
Well, I hope very soon. I hope this is, of course, a great event to meet the right people, and lots of conversations are happening. I think we want to be here. Just to give an example of another country, we went from 1 hotel in Serbia before the pandemic to 4 now. We went from 0 hotels in Bulgaria to 3 in the last 2-3 years. And I think it's important to connect to the investment community and to have the local destination promotion, as it clearly is happening here, to facilitate that. Because then you find the opportunities that you otherwise would not have. So we hope to be here soon. The other thing I think which is also needed, and which is something that we as Radisson offer, is a variety of brands. Because you don't need just only 4 or 5-star hotels. What you need is a variety of hotels, and also what I see is that you have very strong local hotels, like here, the Hills Hotel, where we are. What we offer is a collection, a soft brand called Radisson Individuals, that allows hotels like this one, for example, to come onto our distribution, our loyalty, our revenue optimization. That gives the growth. Once this connectivity is there, it gives the growth in leisure, it gives the growth in MICE business, and it can keep the hotel as it is, with its own identity, and only convert to a hard brand over time.
Okay, and can I ask you, when you say soon, you hope to be here soon, what does soon mean? Months? Years?
No, I mean, I think it needs some development of deals, but we are agile, we can react very quickly, so...
And which of the Radisson brands would be most appropriate to open first, would you say?
Well, I think what we usually do in developing for us a new country, what would be for Radisson, is we go to the capital, so Sarajevo, and then from there we build later in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So capital, Sarajevo, and either an investment that would create and build a new hotel where you can immediately grow with Radisson or Radisson Blu, which are our core brands. And then if you want the independent hotels that are on the market that are good, where no capex investment or just a little bit is needed or possible, you can connect them to what I said before, Radisson Individuals, giving you access to distribution, delivering more than about 50% system contribution in a system like
Okay,
ours.
so there's scope for existing hotels to be part of the Radisson network. And let's hope we see a Radisson hotel in Sarajevo soon. Nico, can I come to you? We've talked about aviation and we've talked about accommodation. What are the other things that are needed, and what are the challenges, if you like, in Bosnia-Herzegovina and the region to developing tourism?
Ian, first of all, hello everyone. Just to say you're doing very good work, and shoot with questions. So if you don't agree with what I'm saying, I'm happy to continue that. So what's happening here in the overall region, I would say that we have a unique combination that is broadly unknown to the world, but it's very well known from within the region. So now you ask for Bosnia. The main neighbors of Bosnia, of course, is the Western Balkans. And how would they come to Bosnia? Roads. So road trip is the main, I think is the main challenge that we have here, because this needs to be facilitated through infrastructure development. That would be one of the main challenges that I think the Western Balkan as a whole should treat. But it's not only that, because when we're talking about tourism development, and I will borrow here a Greek word from biology, what we need is a symbiosis of different aspects that will work together in order to make tourism flourish. And what we don't have yet here is this coordination that the previous panel was speaking about. There is intent, there is no practical example. There is no action on the ground that will take things from advocacy to strategy implementation. So coordination between the Western Balkans, because of course it will be way more powerful as a region, at least in this beginning stage, to go together, and we have other examples in the world that have done that, to initiate the growth.
Okay. When you say there's intent but there's no practical examples, what's holding things up?
Competition between the countries, possibly. So that would be one of the reasons. So collaborating, there is always a willingness, but it stops up to a point. Jokingly, I think our Albanian representative in the last panel said, "Well, we want them all for ourselves." It's not the case, but when you are not saying, "Okay, I'm going to work with you together, and the outcome will benefit both, or the three of us, or the four of us, or the Western Balkans as a whole." And in order to do that, you need to be very objective when you're managing from a strategy perspective. Because if you're not having someone as an objective coordinator who would not see things from particular interest, but see the overall as a whole, the overall benefit as a whole, if you don't do that, you will reach a point that there is always intent, but there is no practice.
Okay, so how do you demonstrate to destinations that there's a value in collaboration because it brings additional visitors rather than those that are having some success already losing visitors or losing some overnight stays because they're collaborating with another destination?
Well, first of all, you can look on best practices and best examples in the world that this has worked. Second, you have to see how the numbers will change if you see Western Balkan as one unity. So we were seeing the growth before with the data sets, right? And we're seeing very small growth, or not growth, very small volumes, big growth, but very small volumes. If that was together and you would go abroad and say, hey, we have this much of international visitation in Western Balkans, why don't you come invest in us? And then not enter into a competition who will invest where, but just try to build a plan of growth and strategy that will outline, okay, let's bring someone here, and then the next step would be to bring another hotel, for example, another hotel chain to the other country from the Western Balkans, just to make sure that unanimously we grow together and we develop together.
Okay. We've spoken previously, I'll come to you in a second, Nikhil, and we've spoken previously, and you talked about the lack of data in Bosnia and in the region. Can you just say something quickly about that and suggest how this can be addressed quickly?
Yeah, totally. Big data is the big thing now, but big data needs volume of comments, of reviews, etc. If that doesn't exist, because we haven't had a lot of tourism here, then we cannot have conclusive results. But what do we do in order to tackle that? Primary research is lacking here in the Western Balkans, so that the authorities are doing correct primary research that does not focus only on the numbers, but also focus on the qualitative side that it's missing, like market research insights, satisfaction of travelers, intent of returning, or expectations versus satisfaction. So what were you expecting when you came and what you actually experienced? And these are important indicators to direct us to the benefits that we have that they don't know and the challenges that we have that they experience.
Okay, I'm going to come to you in a second, Urshka, because you're going to address specifically this point, but Nikhil just wanted to add something when Nikolaos was speaking.
I'm sorry to speak out of turn, but something which is very relevant that Nikolaos spoke about best practices. And from the previous session, they were talking about the Expo 2027 in this part of the world and cooperation. One example I'd like to give is the Football World Cup that happened in Qatar.
Yeah.
Very small country, the accommodation levels were not very high, very few hotel rooms. They were struggling to attract tourists and visitors. But they cooperated with UAE and Oman, and in fact, the other territories benefited more than Qatar. There were feeder flights, daily shuttle flights from Dubai and from Muscat to Doha and back. So people came to watch the match. All the fans came in. It was a very big success. But they spent 2 days in Qatar and 5 days in Dubai. So the overall tourism in Dubai grew as a spin-off to the World Cup, though they were not hosting it. So this is just one particular event, but I think it's a true example of cooperation.
It's a very interesting example, because I think you'll find alcohol played the biggest role in the way that unfolded. Urshka, can I come to you? You're involved in precisely the kind of data project and development that Nikolaos was talking about. Can you just say something briefly about DH3 Hub and the project you're engaged with on the EU Competence Centre?
Yeah, hello from my side. Exactly what you were addressing now. If you want to build sustainable tourism, we need cooperation. What kind of cooperation? So not one that we just think based on assumptions, but on real data. And this is not missing only in this region, this is missing in whole Europe. So the mission of Europe is really to create these data spaces in which data will be shared. I know data is a kind of like a woman for everyone. Everyone wants to have it, but of course not share it. But we should change this mentality slowly and start thinking of as long as we don't share, then we can't make common strategies. And the mission of the Free Hub is exactly to build a competence center, help destinations, as we heard in the past panel, and all stakeholders actually to have the access to all these case studies which help understand that this is a win-win destinations if we share. And then, of course, develop services that help create business, and also profitability. And the idea of this project is really to create a sustainable center which will last, it's not only for the time of the project, but really within Europe, and help destinations within EU and broader to learn how to use data and develop services. And I think, just one thing, it's a great chance for regions like this one to really learn and skip the mistakes that other regions have done earlier. And maybe just really make some advancement that we in the rest of Europe can't do because, did some mistakes.
And what sort of data are you talking about?
All kinds of data that relate to tourism. And we know tourism is this horizontal layer, so connected to so many sectors. It's everything. Also, the quality of life of local residents, not only, the experience of tourists, but the sustainable tourism can only be if we also we must think of the local quality of local residents, because we see what is happening in Gran Canaria and so on.
And how will it be gathered? Will it be gathered by existing government agencies, by new bodies?
Within EU, there are now these data spaces where the guidelines are created for the legislation and for the technicals, like how these data spaces should be. And all sectors are creating and deploying now first pilot projects. And what we do, we cooperate with deployment for tourism, and this D3 hub would be the hub for tourism, and also connect with other sectors. All data that are needed to understand the impact of tourism and to create strategies.
I'll just come to you in a second, Nikolaos, if I can. Just a couple of other things, just to clarify. When you say for the region, what region are you talking about? I saw you'll be providing data to help decision-making of up to 240 destination management organizations. So what's the region you're talking about?
The Free Hub is for EU now.
For the EU as a whole?
As a hub, but also, as I said, broader, because the countries like Bosnia can also apply for some projects, cooperate, and so on.
So they'll be able to draw on it. And what's the timeline for establishing this? When will we see the results
within
of
2 years, this should have the whole form, but already this year we will select 30 destinations, and with piloting with them already with first issues, and try to support them with experts and trying to understand what kind of data are the problematic ones. try to find solutions for legislation on national level and then on EU level, how to help this, to flow of the data, because mostly the problem is legislation now that is blocking, and the mentality of people, of course. But
okay, and could Bosnia-Herzegovina be amongst the 30 destinations you choose for the pilot?
Of the selected first one, not yet, but can already collaborate with issues, and then of course this is broadening.
Okay, Nikolaos, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, because we are discussing a lot about data now and their importance. But going back to this symbiosis that I was talking about, there are some very difficult questions that we need to ask when we're talking about sustainability. It's a buzzword now, but it's not so easy to implement it on the ground. So social sustainability, it's one of the hardest ones to measure. And why? Because each society, each local community is different. So it's very difficult to put a percentage in a local society sustainability. What we need to do and what we are doing on the ground is that we go to the local communities and we are doing qualitative research. We're speaking with the locals. We ask the difficult questions to them and we let them respond. For example, what are your perceptions about how now is your destination evolving? Are you happy? Are you not? Do you receive benefits? Do you feel that you have financial stability in the future? Do you think that your children will have income and opportunities to work in the tourism sector? Do you see challenges through climate change? Do you think over-tourism is happening or it's not? And if it does, how are you tackling this? What are your priorities from now on to the future as residents? And why we do that? In order to make sure that tourism development, sustainable tourism development, will go hand in hand with participatory governance. Because if you don't have participatory governance and if you don't give to your local communities their role as a tourism stakeholder, then you're missing out.
Okay, and is the ICF working with partners in the region?
Yes, not in the region, in the Balkan region, yes. For example, now we have a project with UN Tourism for Thasos Island, Greece, which is the Balkan region, not the Western Balkan. And we're working with the local communities of the island.
Okay, good. Let's come back to aviation capacity. Tony, you talked about why you're here. Briefly, what precisely needs to happen, and is there sufficient understanding of what needed? Hopefully there is after your training sessions. But for example, the marketing support that airlines normally require to start routes and so on.
Yeah, I think if you take it back to a very simplistic situation, we attended an event, our event called Routes, about a month ago in Europe with the airports from Bosnia, and we probably met between us about 70, 80 airlines. There was an overwhelming sense that there is, I wouldn't say complete lack of awareness, but pretty much a very strong lack of awareness of what if there is a tourism product. So I think on a very simplistic level, there needs to be an articulation of what exactly is it that the airlines, we're asking the airlines to serve. Because their perception and view of Bosnia-Herzegovina is we serve those airports primarily for outbound VFR, outbound economic migrant traffic, or diaspora, okay? In their eyes, there is, nobody's defined to them what exactly is the tourism, or what is the segmentation of offering from this region and from this federation. And that is a basic task that needs to be done. Now, I accept, I'm not sure data is actually going to get us there, because clearly I'm not a data expert, but there is a lack of data, and we haven't got the time to do all this intel and data gathering because our competitors are already ahead of the game. And it's no fault of the federation, but it's developing its air service development and tourism strategy. It's in its infancy. We're at the start of the journey. There's no magic wand here. This is not going to happen overnight. because airlines plan at least 12 months ahead. So, you know, we're talking to airlines now about, not about whether they're going to do things in 2025, but actually, are they going to do things in 2026? So it's the start of a journey. What I would say, and this is not me as a consultant saying this is what the airlines tell us. They say, when we engage with countries, federations, we want to talk to all of the stakeholders who have a common interest in making the same thing happen. What they say is we don't want to meet the airports on a Monday, we don't want to then meet the tourism people on a Tuesday and the hoteliers on a Wednesday. We want Team Bosnia to sit in front of us and each of the participants tell us how they can contribute to persuading me as an airline to fly. Now, it might be a number of things. It might be money. With the low-cost sector, look, let's not dance around it. It's generally going to be financially driven, which means you're going to have to negotiate large amounts of support to those airlines to get them in here operating. But I would rather than call it a subsidy, I'd call it an investment. Because when you invest in those carriers, if you invest in them properly and make sure they're here for the long term, then that gives you they effectively do your marketing for you. Okay. You know, it's the airlines that will market the destination on your behalf.
With your money?
With your money.
Yeah. Anca, is that do you recognise what
Yes.
Tony's saying, basically? Because it sounds, you know, brutally realistic assessment that things are starting from the bottom here, and there's some of the most basic things to do, really. Is that how you see it?
I fully resonate with what Tony was saying around.
Yeah.
And what Nikhil was saying also in his previous intervention. I would say that this region, an airline to come, it needs cost, capacity, and infrastructure.
Yeah.
Cost, okay, we can play with it. Capacity, we need to create the capacity. Infrastructure as well. And what is here in this market, and I was looking through some statistics and some data, because IATA is sitting on an amount of data, traffic data, I mean. There is lack of connectivity intra-regional. I mean, when I say intra-regional, I say intra-Balkans. Balkans from Slovenia, okay, to Greece. And there is not, I mean, you cannot go from Podgorica to Sarajevo, zero. You cannot go from Banja Luka to Sarajevo. And by car, I don't know how many of you experience the roads here, but they are a bit challenging. Because of the mountains, because of the geography is difficult. So an airlift would create more opportunities intra-regional, and we can also be sustainable by developing an electric air route with electric planes. There are possibilities that are already there. Yeah. Zero Avia, Heart Aerospace, they are already deploying such aircraft to give a lift from Tivat to Sarajevo, or okay. Name a region here. Moreover, we will attract long-haul tourists, as Ibrahim was saying in the previous panel. When you come here from the States, you visit at least 3 or 4 destinations. How do you do it? Because you can currently do it via Belgrade. Belgrade is the best connected from the whole area. But you need to spend some hours in Belgrade to catch the connection to Sarajevo, for instance.
Yeah, okay. So there's lots of developments required there. Nikhil, I'll come to you in a second, Inge. Nikhil, can I come to you? In the past, destinations, newer destinations were typically opened up by small tour operators putting on charters with support from the local tourism authorities. And then larger tour operators would come in if that proved successful and so on. And the low-cost carriers have largely swallowed that market. The charters have all but disappeared. So it's much more difficult to use this traditional model to open destinations now. You're kind of relying on Wizz, Ryanair, and maybe EasyJet to open destinations. Does that make it more challenging for a destination like Bosnia-Herzegovina?
I would think it complements the charter business that is already there, and it doesn't really cannibalize what is existing. It's hard for charter operators in any destination, and especially with regulatory issues. For example, you have last-minute date changes. You have an upgrade of equipment or aircraft type, or going down to a smaller aircraft. So all those regulatory issues do affect charter travel, which a low-cost carrier does not face that. So I would not think that it's going to get harder. I think low-cost carriers are here to stay, and it is only going to increase.
Yeah. Okay. Inge, you wanted to come in.
Yes, I wanted to say something about a comment that was made earlier about avoiding the mistakes from the past or from other destinations, and it links to what you said about sustainability. I think developing the lodging and the accommodation further in Sarajevo and beyond is a matter of also connecting to net zero and using the expertise of brands like ourselves who are working on net zero. We have a commitment, we know how to do this, we have done research. We can help align with the city strategy and the fact that Sarajevo, for example, is part of the European program for net zero cities. So I think there's opportunities also of bringing in the international players. And also, I read in a recent post by the WEF, the World Economic Forum, I think it's a very high number, but that 50% of travel is driven by some kind of nature aspect. If you combine that with the fact that leisure travel is going to grow, so business and leisure combined, I think you have an ideal combination to think about hotel sustainability, net zero in Sarajevo, and the nature development that you are building already and that we heard from the tourism board to capture that MICE market, the ones who want to do leisure, and the growth that is happening there.
Okay, just to come back to the point earlier about Radisson's not here yet but would like to be, is that because there isn't the investment available locally with external support to bring Radisson in, or because there isn't a realization that partnering with Radisson or similar companies would be the way to address these issues that you're talking about?
I cannot speak for my business development colleagues, so I don't know why we are not here yet or if there have been talks or are talks, but I think a kind of speed dating or matchmaking between the investors that are here. I mean, the companies that are successful here that want to invest, maybe construction companies who want to invest, and brands like ourselves. There's a few international brands here, but I think the power is also of what these international brands represent. So it's a kind of matchmaking that needs to happen and where we would be very open to talk.
Okay. Urshka, Tony said there isn't time for data gathering. That I'm assuming you don't agree with him. I'm assuming you think data gathering is essential, but how can you be in a position to provide Tony with at least some of the data he and the people he's working with requires speedily?
I will go back to my example. There's always time to catch a woman, right? So I will also get the time to catch the data. So maybe just shortly, the awareness, what kind of data, maybe it's something that should be actually more often discussed about and the importance of local data. There are a lot of data around, but they are somewhere in some spreadsheets, in some Excels, in forms that we can't just catch them. First thing would be to map all these data sources, and then we would see, this is what we are doing in some pilot destinations and regions. There are a lot of data, gather them, and then have local data combined with global platforms, and then we can start, these discussions of sustainability of all the stakeholders which do great things, wonderful things, and really then, once we gather, this is what it's about data sharing. It's not just, data about profit, no, it's like all kinds of data, and the importance of local data which are already here. So
I only said that, Ian, in the context of competition. Competition doesn't stand still whilst we collect our data. But that was the context. It wasn't, we don't have, time. Of course we have time, but we've just got to be quick.
Yeah. Nikolaos, something I've heard in relation to the difficulties in building air capacity in Europe is the ownership structure of the airports here. Is that a challenge, and what do you think needs to happen, if anything?
Well, with a very small hat that I have from aviation, we have a big part of aviation in ICF. I'm not an aviation expert, but we have seen in destinations that privatization of airports has worked in the past. That doesn't mean that it's a solution for everything, but at least on case-by-case basis, we need to look into it. Successful stories, I think, Fraport Greece, that the regional airports that Fraport is now handling have really helped the destinations, and the collaboration between the airport authorities and the local tourism ecosystem. However, here, I don't know if we caught it very well, but we mentioned net zero, we mentioned electric plane to electric aviation, airlift. Here, the important thing is first to understand that we have a climate emergency and we need to bring down the greenhouse gas emissions. Aviation is expected in the future to be a huge contributor. And then before we were saying we want long-haul markets. Electric airlift cannot work for long-haul markets.
I was referring to this market.
No.
This market, you need to put an
absolutely. So we need to have a mix with electric airlift from within, for example, the region here. But the biggest challenge, and thankfully we're working with WTTC on this, is how you help the tourism industry understand the challenge that aviation has on making aviation sustainable. One of the solutions is sustainable aviation fuel. It's very hard, it's very expensive, very limited, and needs demand signal. So unfortunately, this region is developing, so it now enters a game where other regions are way more advanced, have maybe money to pay for sustainability. This region does not have so much. This is a challenge, but sustainability is cross-cutting everything that we do.
Yeah. I don't want to avoid these questions, but we can't fit everything into 45 minutes. We're running out of time. Can you each very quickly just address this one final question and do it in about 15 seconds apiece? What are the priorities? No more than 3. Tony?
Investment, engagement with airlines, and creating awareness.
Anca?
I would say partnerships between the actors, between tourism, between the transport. We are all in the European Common Aviation Area, but we still need to file to fly between the two destinations. I'm talking about this region. I mean, for flying from Sarajevo to Podgorica, you need an air service agreement, which in European Union, you don't. You have these open Balkans, this mini Schengen initiative, brilliant. Expand it to all the countries and through other services like aviation.
Okay, Nikhil?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost is creating awareness in target markets, because not everybody knows about Bosnia and how beautiful the country is or how beautiful the Balkans are. So creating awareness, and second is stakeholder collaboration, because that's the next step. When you're negotiating with an airline or a hotel, they want to look at it holistically and not just for one aspect of travel. So I think stakeholder collaboration would be second.
Inge?
I have 2 points. I would say connect stakeholders with investors. I think I made that clear. And also stand out on sustainability. You have the beautiful nature, you have the heritage, you have the culture, so stand out on that and make that a hallmark of your tourism.
Urshka?
Map own data sources, I would say, and learn from mistakes from others and avoid them.
Nikos, I've come to you last because you have an overview, I think.
I would say a Western Balkan-wide tourist development strategy that's implementable, and national sustainable tourism action plans.
Okay, very good. We need strategy, collaboration, connections to investors, and to stand out on sustainability. Please thank this panel.